Hi, I'm Chastity Horn, and today I will be speaking and explaining what's going on in chapter 2, which is called The Morally Developed Media Professional. So, in this chapter, they're speaking on mostly development, like developing personally and using ethics as a personality trait, explaining like ethics is like it's either you have it or you don't. It's a choice that can be like right or wrong in any sense or any situation. So first they speak on how like making ethical choices, it gets better with experience. So like for example, if say you go somewhere and you think about doing something but you're not thinking ethically of what you're about to do, you're just thinking and you're like, oh, let's do it. Some people, like say more mature people, will think more ethically, and you're thinking simple. Like, not to say that that person would be simple minded, they just don't think as ethical as the other person is thinking. So to go deeper with that, the chapter just simply takes you through all the stages of it takes you through all the stages of moral development. It takes you from the early ethical decision making to the middle stage, which is also known as the conventional stage, all the way to the later stage. So, starting with the early stage, it's simply just you're making small choices, like the simple minded that I was speaking on, but not trying to just call a person simple minded, but you're thinking small. You're not thinking big and ethical like you should. So, also, in the early stage, it's like, for example, an example they used in the book was you think deep on how to treat someone, or you do what's told of you. Like when you're a kid, it's just as simple as going from like elementary school to high school. When you're in elementary school, you listen, you take in everything your teacher tells you to do. All right, put your hand over your mouth. But if you were in high school and somebody told you to do that, you're thinking more ethical on what's being told of you, so you feel like you don't have to do it or something like that, right? So back to the early stage. So yeah, like I said, you're respecting your authority as was said in the book. I'm just going based off everything that was said in the book. So yeah, so we honestly can move on to the middle stage, which is also known as the conventional stage, where it's the level where most people, learn to operate, where they get more comfortable, where they're learning to adjust to think more ethically. So people actually recognize the power that they really have in this middle stage. So, like I said, let's just keep thinking about it as elementary to high. Once you're at like middle school, you go from elementary school, middle school, high school. So, middle school is where you're learning, you're feeling yourself, you're figuring out who you are, understanding that you have power that you really never thought you really had. So, most people, like they say most people, actually in that middle stage, they feel like, well, if an authority gives an answer, they can come back with the answer as, well, maybe there's no right answer, maybe there's no right or wrong. Like, you just start to understand that things are not always how they're put out to be. Like, if someone tells you your whole entire life as a kid, the sky is purple, it's really purple, it's really purple, but you get older and you're like, wow, you're basically being brainwashed as a kid to think so many different things, but when you get older, you actually see it for yourself because you're thinking more ethically. Your brain is developing, you're developing those ethical morals that they're talking about in chapter 2. So on to the later stage, that's where it's like you're forced to grow up. You have to make your own decisions. Um you look at authority as nothing to you. Like, authority is nothing. Like, you telling me what to do? Like, no. So it's like once you get older and you're at high school, now we're at the high school level. So it's like back in elementary school, your teacher would tell you, all right, guys, line up one behind the other. High school, your teacher tells you that. You like, no. Like, what do you mean? Are you talking to me like that? I'm basically grown. You're in high school. So it's just like in that later stage, it's like you become more responsible. You understand that it's not good to follow the crowd. You understand that sometimes it's good to lay back, lay low, and focus on yourself. You start to realize a lot of different things. So I just look at it as growing up. You start as a kid, you're told all of these things. you're starting to realize like, maybe that's right, maybe it's not. So you start looking at it a different way from your own perspective. Then once you get older, you actually realize like, wow, I dealt with this, I learned this, I believe this. Like, simple as like the tooth fairy or Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, if you just think about it in that way, then you would probably understand like where I'm coming from with that. So they also use a young lady named Sarah at the end of the chapter, talking about her moral development, her ethical developments. And this young lady was a very eager news anchor. She was rewarded at everything she did at school. Like, if she helped someone on the side of the road, she was rewarded for. She got recognition for everything she did. But once she got more into, the actual newsroom, being a news anchor, becoming an older woman, she didn't take on that growing ethically, like growing and maturing more. So her mind growing and maturing more. I'm sorry about that. So she was a very caring young lady. But to me, I look at the situation as like doing a sport. When you're younger and you do a sport and you do good, yeah, good job. Like, that was great, Chastity, good job. But if you go to college and you do that sport, it's like, okay, because that's what you're supposed to do. The older you get, the less you will be rewarded for things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a good person. You're supposed to care. Everybody doesn't do it, but you're supposed to do it. So, further on in the story about the young lady Sarah, she had people telling her she couldn't do everything she wanted to do. Like, she couldn't be a news anchor and support the community. Her job was to get the news, get the story about the news, put it out there, move on. So it's like she went from being the one that everyone loved to the one that everybody complained about. So her moral growth, like, she grew slowly. Like, instead of growing faster, like the 3 stages, middle, early, middle, high, she didn't do that. So her moral sophistication clearly came on slowly. But I'm guessing, she got onto the ball and realized that you can't always, be a people pleaser when doing a certain job. It's like you become mature and you understand how can I put it? Like, you understand what's necessary and what's not. You understand the necessities of life. You understand that you won't be rewarded for everything. You understand that you have to grow up and you have to be responsible and make your own thoughts and make your own decisions. So that's just to wrap it up. Chapter 2, in my opinion, chapter 2 is simply about growth, growing from young, simple-minded to high, sophisticated mind. So I hope you guys learned a lot from my chapter 2 summary. Bye.